How to find the processes which are hogging the machine. Scenario: all of a sudden, my computer feels sluggish. Mouse moves, but windows take ages to open, etc. Uptime says the load is 7.69 and raising. What is the fastest way to find out which processes are the cause of the load? Now, top and similar tools isn't the answer because they either show CPU or memory usage, but not both at the same time. What I need is the single command, which I might be able to type as it happens, something that will figure out any of. System is trying to swap 8 GB of RAM to disk because process X. Or process X seeks all over the disk. Or process X uses 400% CPU. So what I'm looking for is iostat, top, a top and similar tools run into one with an output like this. I don't want a tool that gives me some numbers, which I can analyze, but a tool that tells me exactly which process causes the current load. Assume that the user in front of the keyboard barely knows how to write process, but the user is quickly overwhelmed when it comes to resident size, virtual memory, or process life cycle. My argument goes like this: a user notices a problem. There can be thousands of reasons. Well, almost. Smiley face. The user wants to know the source of the problem. The current solutions give me lots of numbers, and I need to know what these numbers mean. What I'm looking for is a meta tool. 99% of the data is irrelevant to the problem. So what the tool should do is look for processes which hog some resource and list only those along with, this process needs a lot of CPU, this produces many IRQs, this process allocates a lot of RAM, and it's still growing. This will be a relatively short list. It will be much more simple for someone new to this to locate the culprit from this list than from the output of, say, top, which gives me about 5,000 numbers but requires me to fold multi-threaded processes myself. I have 50 lines which say vert 2750M but only 16 GB of RAM. The machine ought to swap itself to death, but of course, this is a misinterpretation of the data that can happen quickly.
Top works reasonably well, as long as you look at the right numbers. Let's see. Now, if the system is slow because CPU is all taken, it shows as us and psi columns on CPU's row being close to 100% together. If it's slow due to swapping, mem-free shows very low values and swap used high values. If it's slow due to IRO in general, then CPU's WA tells that time is spent on IRO wait. Now, if you know IO waits are the problem, you can use programs IOTop to know which processes create most IRO.
I do have to smile at the responses because each told you to run tool X. The only problem is if what you're seeing is intermittent, there will be no way to correlate anything. A tool like SAR can help if you run it at a high enough frequency, but I'd claim Collectl is even better. Like SAR, you run it as a daemon by installing the RPM and doing /etc/init.d/collectl start. Now when you see something sluggish, Collectl p top will play back the data and show you the top processes. You could have also just run Collectl top and see them in real time. BTW, anything you can do in real time you can play back as well. As for CPU load, what if you are getting overloaded with interrupts? Collectl SC will not only show the loads on individual CPUs, or use SC for average load, it will show how they're spending their time. Include J, SCJ, and you'll see the number of interrupts/CPU. Use uppercase J and you'll see the types of each interrupt/CPU. Of course, if you really like Vemstat, you can always play back Collectl data with Vemstat and it will show historical data in Vemstat format. There are far more switches than I have time to list, but you can check it out at SourceForge or just Google it.
Based on the 400% usage, I'll assume that you have a quad-core processor. Your load average is almost double the capacity and half of the processes are waiting for CPU. First, run ice your shell to 0 or -10 to get a more responsive system, and then use top to find the offending processes and follow that with strace on a given process. Other tools that could be useful are Vemstat, SAR, iostat, PMAP. A
sluggish mouse could also be due to a too high interrupt load, or USB controllers being very busy. I assume it's a USB mouse.
VMSTT8 could help you in general terms. An example of use is you can run it every X seconds as well, just add the number X after the command. Edit, in view of comment. Write the following to a file and make that file executable. It will tell you the top 3 processes on the machine. If you wanted to know which hogged memory as opposed to CPU, then read the top man page and change the order of display.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.